Here's a video to acquaint you with how to put the gimbal on and off the quadcopter, the Typhoon G. So first of all, we'll understand that the Typhoon G comes with this little box on the bottom, and this is your video transmitter. This box is simply used for transmitting video via this little antenna. And this antenna is broken, by the way, because it was in a crash, but the little plastic part came off of it. This is the actual antenna part. But this little box here is a 5 gigahertz transmitter. It'll transmit at 5 gigahertz through this antenna to the ground station here, and it'll provide the video here on 5 gigahertz. So that's how that works, and this is powered by a wire. So here we see the gimbal assembly and the wires that come with it. This wire here has been in a crash, and I epoxied it back together, but this wire goes into your Hero camera. So here's a Hero camera. This is a Hero 4 Silver, and the wire gets plugged into here. This wire here goes into your transmitter. So if you see this little plug here, it looks like a basic stereo headphone plug, but this goes into the transmitter on the side. So here you'll see on this transmitter, 5 gigahertz transmitter, there's a little plug right there. So you're going to plug this wire into there like that, and that'll give this thing power. Now the power for the gimbal and the control signals for the gimbal come from this wire here that you plug into the bird right here. So you put that wire in there. So let's go through how to put this together properly. So if you're learning how to fly this Typhoon G, you probably don't want to risk your gimbal when you're learning how to fly, so you can leave the gimbal off. The bird does not need the gimbal to fly, and you don't need little antenna to fly. So little antenna can be taken off just by gripping it here and pulling it backwards. There, it comes off. You'll see it's got a little plug here, gold plug, and that gold plug goes right here in the back. So you just simply take the gold plug and you line it up here carefully, and you'll see it's got a round hole. You put it in there until it lines up, and maybe get your fingernail or a tiny screwdriver and push it gently until it locks in place. That's how to get your 5 gigahertz antenna on there. Without this antenna attached, you can't get the video from this transmitter to the ground station, so you got to have this antenna attached. And you don't want to run this thing without the antenna because it could burn out the transmitter. The transmitter makes radio energy, and that radio energy has to go somewhere, and it has to go out the antenna. So now, you don't really want to fly around if you're just learning how to fly with a gimbal. The gimbal's pretty delicate. You can see this gimbal here, it's all kind of floppy. The gimbal is floppy when it's ready to be used. It has a retainer on it, which is black, and the retainer is really hard to get off. It's really hard to even understand that it's on there. But when the gimbal retainer is on there, the gimbal will not move. So you want to make sure you get that off. Okay, here, if you see this arrow here, this is how to put the gimbal onto the aircraft. You put the arrow in toward the middle of the plane. So we're going to take this over here, and we'll simply put the gimbal on this piece here. And you line up this little shaft area with this piece. Let's see if we can get it on the camera here. Okay, well, yeah, lined up. So I just moved it back, and you'll hear it click, perhaps or perhaps not. But you want to get this tongue to come out, okay? And now you'll see the tongue has a groove, and it stops the gimbal. So if I try and pull it back off, it's going to stop. You want to always grab the gimbal down here, because if you grab it up here, these rubber grommets are very delicate, and they'll come off. And so you'll rip them out. It won't hurt them, but they're a pain to put back in, so you don't want to do that. So okay, let's pretend we're going to fly with the camera. So we have the gimbal on the aircraft. there's a wire that plugs in the gimbal, this main funny looking wire that has the two connectors on it, one connector for the power for the transmitter, and one connector here for the Hero camera. So it's tricky to get this wire into the gimbal, but you got to get it in there. And you want to plug the power wire in for the transmitter into the transmitter. So let's do that. That goes over here as we did. So we'll plug it into there. And it'll click right in there. Now it's in. We got that wire in. Now this wire goes to the camera. We don't have the camera on yet. We want to put this wire to power the gimbal and the transmitter into the aircraft body. So that wire goes in like that. Now in theory, this gimbal is ready to go as far as there's no camera on it, but the gimbal could act as a gimbal per se. Okay, here's the Hero camera, and you see a little dot here, a little gap, a hole. This hole here is for the button on top of your camera, the record button. So the record button is right here. So when you put this camera in, it's sort of a pain, but you'll see there's a lip right here, and what this lip means is this is the front of the gimbal. This is the part where the lens is going to stick out, okay? So when you put this camera in, you have to do a few things. First of all, you have to get this little wire here into the side of the camera, and that can be a little hard. So what I found is you got to put that wire on there carefully and then slip the camera into the gimbal. So the wire goes right here. You can plug it in like that. But you can't plug it in until you really know how the camera is going to go in. So we want to get the camera in. This little lip here means it's the front of the gimbal. So the camera would go in from the back. This is the back. You'd put the camera in like that. And so what I usually do is just start the camera in. And then I try to put the wire on. So let's do that. See how that works out. Okay, so here's the gimbal. We'll put the camera in like this. Now, see how the camera's in there. Now the tricky part is, how do we get this wire on the side of it? So we got to pull it back out and get the wire on. So what I do is flip it over like this. Okay, so there's the camera there. If you don't put the camera in all the way, it's going to be not balanced. So you got to push it in all the way like this into the gimbal. Let me put the camera down and do that. Push it in all the way like this. And now you see the camera balances. So we still got to put this little wire in. So the camera would have to get pulled out, and the wire would go down here and into the camera. I'm not going to bother doing that right now because with this recording camera it's hard. What we're going to do though is we're going to turn the copter on and check how the gimbal works. So now to check that your gimbal even works at all, you just turn your copter on. And right now with it off, you can see the gimbal kind of flops all around. Doesn't make much sense, right? So let's turn on the bird. This bird is not functional, but the gimbal will come on. I'm missing an ESC motor. ESC controller is bad, but that tone means there's something wrong with the initialization. But the gimbal will come on. After about, there it is. So after about 10 seconds, the gimbal beeps. And now you can see the camera straightened up. So to check your gimbal, pick up the drone and move it. And you'll see the camera will stay steady when I'm moving this drone all around. The camera stays pointed exactly the same way. And when I go side to side, it also stays pointed. So that means this gimbal's working fine. Okay, so what we should do in the next video is connect the wire and show you how to get the video from this drone, this camera, this wire, video feed onto the ground station. We'll do that next.